Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today we're going to take another look at the Schmincke Super Granulating Watercolor Dot Chart that I have. And we are going to take a look at the 6th set on the chart, and that is the Tundra set. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the look at the watercolors. Now let's get on with the swatching. Okay. Let's take a look at these Tundra colors. Okay, so starting with Tundra Orange, we've got a 3 pigment color right off the bat, and it is Pigment Yellow 43, Pigment Red 22, and Pigment Brown 7. But it looks like it probably will reactivate quite nicely if I just give it a little moment. So it is an orangey color, but it is a very desaturated browny orange. Yellow, red, and brown. With the 3 pigments in this particular color, I imagine that the color separation, once it starts to granulate and settle, won't be as drastic as we have seen in some of the other super granulating colors. It's definitely granulating already. Okay, moving right along here, we're going on to Tundra Pink, and this is Pigment Blue 29 and Pigment Red 233. If you've been following any of the other videos where I've been swatching these colors, you may be familiar with those two colors already. Looks a heck of a lot more purple to me, or violet, than it does pink, but let's just see how this plays out. I also feel like I've seen this pigment combination in another one of their colors. Just give this a minute to really get all activated. Okay, what do we got here? Yeah, it's still going on pretty purpley. But it's quite pretty. I think it's going to be semi-transparent. Maybe just a touch of opaqueness from the 233. I can already see some of the separation between the blue and the red up there in that swatch. Still feeling pretty purpley to me, but it is a very pretty color. I think it's going to pink up a little bit as the colors separate. I can sort of see it a little bit already up in here. I feel like this one's going to do a lot of interesting things as it dries. Okay, moving right along to Tundra Violet. So we got PB 29 again, mixed with PBR 6. Ooh, that one reactivates really quickly. I think it's the PBR 29 that reactivates quite nicely. A little bit too much water here. It's very dark, transparent. It's a very muted violet, almost gray. Instantly you can see that the Pigment Blue 29 trying to separate itself away from the other colors. Ooh, look at that spot of red brown came down in there. So one cool thing about these colors is they're somewhat unpredictable, which makes working with them fun and interesting. Mix that all up. So this one very quickly is both granulating and the colors are separating. I think this one's going to be very fun. Hi, editing Wendy here. I just want to apologize. This next color I accidentally recorded in time-lapse, and I tried to slow it down so that you could get an idea of what was going on, but of course, because it was recorded in time-lapse, it's all choppy. But my audio was recorded separately, so at least you have that. So again, sorry. Okay, next we have Tundra Blue, and it is another 2 pigment color. It is Pigment Blue 29 and Pigment Brown 7. So first impressions, it's a nice medium dark blue. I mean, as expected, we know that the PB 29 is French ultramarine, and then it's mixed with a little bit of brown, so it is a slightly muted version of French ultramarine. I'm getting some good granulation already. I'm not seeing much color separation, so I'm not sure that there will be a lot. We'll find out as it dries. That's when the magic usually happens. Okay, last one in the Tundra set. We've got Tundra Green, Pigment Green 19 and Pigment Brown 6. Well, the green seems to be lifting off there quite nicely. Feels very opaque immediately. Very easy to re-wet. I'm liking that. Yeah, it definitely seems much more opaque. Probably the most opaque out of this whole set. That whole set being the Tundra set. Like, it's almost completely covered over that black opacity swatch that I had there. We'll see what happens when it dries. Not sure offhand what these colors are. I can't wait to see what the individual pigments are when I do the breakdown here in a bit. Not seeing a lot of color separation, but it could be that they're very similar in hue. But this one's definitely feels like it is the most opaque, has the highest pigment load of the Tundra set, most easily re-wet. Okay, let's let that dry and see what happens. Okay, let's break down these pigments and take a look at what we're working with here. So the first one we're looking at here is Tundra Orange, and it is orangey. It's not what you would think of as a typical orange. It's a very muted. It's not a very what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a very vibrant orange. It's definitely more muted. But let's take a look at the pigments that make this color. So pigment yellow 43, pigment red 233, and pigment brown 7. Okay, pigment yellow 43 is lemon yellow. Okay, guys. Editing Wendy here again. I'm so sorry about that. PY43 is clearly not lemon yellow. That is PY3. I am dyslexic, but come on, Wendy, there was an entire number missing. Anyways, PY43 is actually a yellow ochre, which Schmincke's line, their yellow ochre, they use PY42. They do have PY43 as a pigment mixed with a couple of colors, but they don't have a PY43 on its own. So yeah, just to be clear, it's an ochre color. It is not lemon yellow. So sorry about that. So later when I say that had a really bright yellow in the mix, just ignore that, pretend I didn't say that. Okay, back to the video. The other two colors in it, the pigment red 233, which may be familiar to you, is Potter's Pink. It is very, very granulating. And it is a very muted pink, at least the Schmincke's version. It's very mildly opaque, so probably it's considered semi-opaque or semi-transparent. I actually really never understood the difference. And then pigment brown 7 is green umber. And again, this is not, I mean, it is a little bit granular, but the granulation, like the particles are very, very fine. And this is very transparent. It's a very transparent color. So you got a very bright yellow with a very muted pink and a sort of greenish transparent brown, and this is what you got. So the granulation all comes from the Potter's Pink, the PR233. All in all, it's a pretty cool color. I honestly am not really sure of what a Tundra looks like, so I can't really compare these two things you might actually see out there. But I did notice that this is very similar in hue to the Desert Orange. They're completely different pigments, and the Desert Orange is not as granular. The granulation is much more subtle than in the Tundra Orange, but hue-wise, they are very similar. Okay, Tundra Pink. Again, it's still, I mean, it still seems kind of purpley to me, more so than a pink, but if you compare it to what they call the violet here, it is definitely much more pink. It is made of pigment blue 29 and pigment red 233. So we just looked at pigment 233, and we know that that is Potter's Pink. And Potter's Pink is a common color that a lot of people have in their palettes. And then pigment blue 29, we should also know by now, is French ultramarine. And again, this is a very common color to have in a palette. So that color would be very easy for most people to mix on their own if they already have those two colors in their palette. And you know, I've never really been a huge fan of the Potter's Pink, but seeing how it's mixed with a lot of these super granulating colors, it's another color I'm considering picking up. So yeah, the blue and the pink do make a very pretty pinky purpley color. It's very granular, and there is some color separation. You can see spots that look a little bit more blue and spots that look a little bit more pink. It's very nice, actually. I would love to play with this. I'm not really sure in what context, but I would love to play with it. Tundra Violet. It's still, it really doesn't, I mean, compared to this blue, it is more violet, but it's still in person does not strike me as a violet. It strikes me very much as a desaturated blue, which makes sense because it's a blue and a brown, and I bet you that brown, pigment brown 6, is a pretty warm, it's a pretty warm brown. So you take a warm orangey brown and mix it with a warmish blue, and you get this sort of desaturated blue color with very distinct kind of orangey peachy colors that are poking through there. The blue is more granular than the brown, and so as it settles in little divots, it's showing a lot more of the brown pigment, which in comparison or in contrast to the blue looks actually very peachy. Okay, Tundra Blue. It's a very nice dark, medium dark blue. It's very granular, and again we have the Pigment Blue 29, the French Ultramarine, mixed with Pigment Brown 7, which again is this green umber. This color is very transparent and not, I would imagine that the tinting strength is very low. So when mixed with a very strong ultramarine blue, it's just enough to tone down the blue a little bit, but not enough to overpower it in any way, and you can't really see a whole lot of color separation. If you look real close, maybe you can see something that looks a little bit more dull, and that's probably the brown, but overall, it's a fun, dark, granulating blue color. It's just like using a desaturated French ultramarine. Okay, and the last one here, this one is the most opaque of the 5 of this set, and it is Tundra Green, and we have Pigment Green 19 and Pigment Brown 6. And you can see a little bit of color separation and a little bit of granulation, but it's actually, if you compare it to other colors in this set, it is the least granulating, at least in my little swatch sample here. So let's look at these colors. So Pigment Green 19, we have Cobalt Green Pure, Pigment Green 19. Slightly opaque, so there is a little tiny bit of granulation, but the particles are very fine compared to other granulating colors. Mixed with the Mars Brown 6. Which is a relatively orangey warm brown, and again it has granulation, slightly more subtle than other colors that we've seen, but more granulating than the Cobalt Green Pure. So those two colors explains, I suppose, why this color you don't see a whole lot of granulation. It's a very, very subtle granulation, and the color separation is also pretty subtle. It is really nice, sort of a muddy greeny color. It is nice. It's just very different compared to the other colors in this set. Overall, I think that this is a really nicely balanced set in the sense that it gives you a lot of different hues to play with. Whereas some of the other sets, like say the Shire, which focused mostly all on greens, and the Deep Sea, which was mostly all on blues. This one here, you got a little orange and a little purple and blue and green, so you got a few different things to play with. It would be really interesting to actually have this set and, you know, play with making a painting or something out of these colors. So maybe that can be a goal of mine someday. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this look at the super granulating Tundra set from Schmincke, and look forward to the next one. And if you liked it and you found it interesting, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And until the next video, bye-bye.